Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pathfinders Global Digital Conference, Fall of 2024. My name is Aashini Bala, and I'm honored to be your host for today's opening conference. I'm currently pursuing my Master's in Business Analytics at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, where I focus on merging data with impactful decision-making through business analytics. This event represents a division that is both a wide audience and also personal, creating a space for anyone aiming to make an impact in leadership, technology, and humanity. As the name Pathfinder suggests, each one of us is on our own unique journey, exploring new directions in life, work, and society. We are all Pathfinders, navigating through challenges and discovering opportunities along our individual paths. This past summer, I had the opportunity to explore decentralized physical infrastructure networks, also known as DePIN, with Zadwell, a company leading in advanced technology innovations and solutions. Through this experience, I've been finding my own path in this evolving tech landscape, just as each one of you are doing in your respective fields today. Now, let's watch this video about what exactly Pathfinders is.
In a world filled with possibilities, one truth stands out. Everyone is a pathfinder in their own journey. Whether it's charting new territories in leadership, embracing the future with technology, or nurturing humanity, pathfinders are everywhere. Pathfinders, a platform built for everyone. We believe in the power of connection, a spark of curiosity, and the potential to inspire. Here we bring people together, not just as professionals, but as dreamers, thinkers, and change makers. Through engaging podcasts, thought-provoking digital conferences, and dynamic audio roundtables, and many more, we create spaces for meaningful conversations. We celebrate those who seek to understand, innovate, and lead. People like you. Pathfinders inspires. Pathfinders embraces technology. And above all, Pathfinders spreads a vision where leadership, innovation, and humanity converge to shape a better and brighter future. We are here to connect, to build bridges that transcend barriers, to share stories that matter, and to foster a community driven by passion and purpose. Be a part of this journey. Be a Pathfinder. Welcome to Pathfinders.
Today's conference will follow a dynamic format. Each keynote will be followed by a brief Q&A session, allowing you to engage directly with our speakers. So be ready to ask your questions and make the most of this interactive experience today. You can ask your questions directly in the chat window available to you from any platform that you have joined from today. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the founder of Pathfinders, Vijayan Swaminathan, who believes in the spirit of a true Pathfinder. Vijayan, or Vijay as his friends call him, will share more about the conference and introduce our keynote speakers. Please join me in welcoming Vijay to the stage.
Aashini, thank you so much. That was a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much. Hey everyone, how are you doing today? Today, I'm so excited to launch this event. This is our very first conference, and I'm so excited to get this started. So I just want to talk about like what is a Pathfinder. I believe you just saw the video. If you haven't, I encourage you to go and watch it. It's on YouTube. I believe that everyone is a Pathfinder. I, me, you. All of us in one way or the other, right? We are all Pathfinders in one way or the other. What is Pathfinders in a sense? We want to focus on three strong pillars. One is leadership, technology, and humanity. when I say leadership, I want to inspire young leaders, and it's about sharing a vision and giving them the courage and motivating them to go pursue wilder dreams and chase their passion. And that's leadership for us, and we want to encourage them doing that. And with technology, we want founders and CEOs to innovate with technology and making a progress and solve real life problems, and with advanced tech and beyond, and so many other things. Coming from a technology background, it really helps, and I'm so passionate about spreading the word about technology as well. And the third pillar is this humanity. I think we are all humans as people. We'd love to bring people together in this platform, enhance that human experience that we all call it life, and so that making every other day a better day for people that are out there around the globe. So that's what Pathfinders is all about. So bringing people together on leadership, technology, and humanity. So today, I'm so happy to announce that we have just completed our season 1 of our Pathfinders podcast that we started earlier this year. So we have covered guests from the Silicon Valley, from Toronto, Ontario, from Munich, Germany, Atlanta, Vancouver, a couple of guests from Edmonton, close to where I live, from people from Chicago, Ottawa, and Dallas, Texas, and so many others, right? And we have covered a wide range of topics as well. We have covered veteran technologists like Dave Thomas, who has spent 50 years in his career in technology, right from 1960, late 60s onwards, to all the way up to very recently. And we have covered brilliant topics on software libraries with Spider, and we have covered topics on Bitcoin, which is many people are trying to understand what Bitcoin is. We had a fantastic session with Adam O'Brien earlier. It was amazing, and we covered one of the very fascinating topics, which is called event modeling, with Adam Dimitrick. It was a wonderful episode on Adam Dimitrick, and who introduced me to Arjan and Dave Thomas, others as well, with the event modeling and conference. So many other topics: immigration, business development with Kelly Kennedy, and immigration with Atala. So many other topics that we covered, and we are so proud to share that with you. You can go find it on Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter, or X, we call it today. So go check it out. I'm sure there's a ton of value packed in it. That said, as we complete our season 1 of our podcast, today, for the very first time, we are putting together a Pathfinders Global Digital Conference. This is going to be a quarterly conference. That's what we're looking for. We plan to do at least 3 or 4 of this format every year. So we are so excited for that. And there is more. We are also looking to do more audio events, bring audio roundtables, hot topics on technology, on innovation, or politics, or any others, and bring people together, 30 to under 60-minute conversation on roundtable, different topics. People can really debate, bring a topic and talk about it, and then share that with the fellow community. And if you'd like to work with us, just please reach out. My DMs are always open. Thank you so much. So that's the Pathfinders that we are building today. We'd be so happy for us to join you, join us in this moment. I'm so excited. I'm no way a great public speaker or anything. I'm learning it, but you will see great speakers today speaking, like Peter Hawkins and Arjan. And Peter Hawkins is a lovely person. I met him in the Brazil Canada Chamber of Commerce meeting, and he's an amazing individual. That is an understatement. And every time I see him, there's a great smile on his face. You'll see soon what Peter Hawkins is all about. He's a man who really took the time to connect, say hello, shake your hand, give that warm welcome in an introduction. And when I met him online for a virtual setting prior to this conference, he really took the time to go look at my profile and give me interesting tips. I loved it. I mean, he really took the time to give some nice tips. Thank you, Peter, for doing that. And really loved his opening note at the chamber event. And that's when I reached out to Peter, and Peter was kind enough to say, of course. And I can't wait to introduce Peter. Peter is an award-winning business leader. He's an entrepreneur, an advocate for growth, diversity, and opportunity. He's a co-chair of Brazil Canada Chamber of Commerce. He's a co-owner of Mellowhawk Logistics, a certified diverse international freight forwarder with offices in Canada, US, and Brazil. Peter's supports business in expanding to new markets and fostering global partnerships. He's been honored as the Mississauga Board of Trade's Business Person of the Year, and has received accolades for his contributions to Canada's international trade and export sectors. Peter joins us today from Mississauga in the Greater Toronto Area from Canada. Beyond business, Peter is a dedicated mentor, an advisor, actively supporting newcomers, young professionals, and underrepresented groups in like finding their like paths to their success. Right? He collaborates with educational institutions, with universities and organizations to share his insights and motivates others to pursue their excellence. We are so honored to have you, Peter, with us today. Please join me in welcoming Peter Hawkins to the stage.
I'm delighted to be here. I really am. That was such a lovely introduction. My goodness, I'm wonderful. So thank you for that. You know what? So Vijay, I got to tell you, when I first met you, and so in Edmonton, and we're doing a presentation of many different companies who are looking at the Edmonton area, and to be honest, it was kind of exciting to meet you. And I think we could say a lot of those things that you said about me, we could turn right around and say about you. Warm and welcoming, helpful, dynamic leader. Like those describe you to a T. And it's so nice because you didn't even ask for the advice, and I gave it to you anyway. So that's one thing that, if you say hello to me, I'm going to tell you what I think.
Love it.
But can I justify why? Can I tell you why? The
Yeah,
why I
please.
can tell you what I think is I am a business owner and I sit on a lot of boards with other business owners. And we talk all the time about who works for us and who would like to work for us and how they can present themselves. And more, what I try to do is tell those candidates this is what an employer is looking for, and this is the power you have to control that, especially online. The great gift of COVID is, of course, that we have killed the gatekeeper. You can go directly to the person who is making the decision. And if you are prepared, if you've done a LinkedIn profile, a resume, and presented yourself professionally online, your chances of moving forward are really, really good, no matter what sector you're in. And it's funny, I own a logistics company, you're obviously right. I also own a film company, but I didn't own a tech company. And I was in the tech space a lot till finally they started complaining. And so
Right.
I now own a tech company too. So
There you go.
so there. And so it's funny because I own a freight forwarding company and I didn't even know what that word was till I owned the company. And it's not that I have a shitload of money or anything like that. It's just that I'm in places where opportunity happens. And why
Right.
does it happen? It happens because I'm prepared. Okay, I've stockpiled whatever I needed. I have the
Right.
knowledge. I love to read,
Right.
uh, I'm going to jump into one more thing that was really entertaining for me. You heard of the Earthshot Prize, which Prince William gives out a prize for 5 companies every year who are improving the environment or
Sounds
air.
familiar though. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So in South Africa last night, they gave the awards out. And I was on a plane talking to a really interesting guy who was talking
Hmm.
about concrete. And
There you.
okay, concrete. I love concrete. When I was a kid, my father made us all run concrete walls. I know that sounds like a work child labor thing, but he wanted to keep us busy and he wanted to keep us fit. And so I learned all there was to learn about concrete. So I'm sitting on a plane talking to a guy, a young guy, and he said what he did, and I said, "Oh, I love concrete." He said, "I've never heard that before in my life." And so we had a conversation. Make a long story short, he has a solid state technology that actually captures heat off concrete and building construction sites that it captures it and recycles it and reuses it. And to make
Right.
the story complete, he won last night. He's a Canadian guy and he won the prize. He won
Wow.
1.7 million Canadian dollars.
Wow.
Given to him by Heidi Klum and Prince William. So Kelly Adams, ATS is the company, and just I love it. I love a success story. I love a guy who had a dream and he did it. And so, but he had to get a job first. He had to pay for it. He had to support his family. And so,
Right.
a lot of that stuff is just finding, yes, he loved concrete, but he also had to find the way to speak to people about his skills and abilities in order to get the jobs that he ultimately got that led to that.
Right.
And And
No, that's
you have
brilliant.
to.
That's
Yeah.
brilliant, Peter. Thanks for sharing that. It's definitely a story that everyone should. Thanks for sharing that. It's a brilliant story. Yeah.
So, what I want to talk about though here, it's funny because I have a PowerPoint, but I also love just having the exchange of the two of us talking. So I'm debating whether or not I'm going to use my 41 slides.
Yeah,
And
yeah. No,
I,
yeah. Go ahead. Stage is all yours. I can come in and out
yeah,
as you
no,
want. Yeah.
yeah,
Please feel
like
free.
it just I say just stay on. So what I'm
Okay.
thinking is so just so everybody knows who I am the co-chair of the Brazil Canada Chamber of Commerce. It's been around for 50 years, and it's all about networking. And what I have discovered, I mean, I don't look Brazilian. Nobody would think I am Brazilian, but I'm married to a Brazilian, and I live there part of the time, and I own a business in Brazil, and that's why I'm there. Um, and what I have discovered in my own company too, because we ship to Brazil so often, is that everybody in my company is from somewhere else. And in fact, I'm the only Canadian born person in my company. Everybody else is from everywhere else. And what I have discovered too is they had terrible stories. When I said, "So how did you get here?" and they worked in car washes out in on the 401 highway, or they did cleaning jobs, or a lot of tough survival jobs, a lot of good survival jobs, but a lot of tough ones. And I decided that if I met you, you were never going to have to go through that. And if you were coming to Canada as a newcomer, come for yourself, not for your kids. Okay? Because you wanted me to talk about leadership. I'll tell you, making that step makes you a leader. Okay? Canadians are passive. We're sanctimonious and we're smug. Everybody says we're polite. We're not helpful. But I will tell you that newcomers are the people who are going to lead the future. And they've already taken that giant step of leaving their home. And so already that makes them more powerful. Okay? Now, they're vulnerable because the system isn't fair. But the fact is, the system is a game, and everybody can play a game. And the game is present yourself in a way that is digestible by the person who you want to persuade. Okay? So, for instance, if you're looking for a job and they have a list of skills, make sure your skills match their skills. Now, we know they do. We know your hard skills match, but have you phrased them in a way? And that's what I'm more and more I'm trying to give context. So if you're coming from Bangalore and to Canada and you went to a great university, then put it in context. This is the U of T of Bangalore. Okay, just uh, give it context so that I understand it. I understand those skills, and I just want to remind everybody that there is a vocabulary, a shorthand. Now, that's for the applicant and the person who's come here and is looking for a job and all that stuff. On the other side, the employer also has to do some learning here. The employer also has to learn that newcomers will have their own vocabulary, will have their own list of skills and abilities, and they must be able to appreciate those. So I try to coach both the applicants and the employers because in my company, again, everybody's from somewhere else. I had to hear and listen to what it is they had to offer, and different cultures have a huge array of communication. There are those who only talk about their academic credentials. There are those who never look you in the eye because it's a sign of disrespect. There are those that have no handshake. And I try to push all of them into a way that is easily digestible by everybody who's in the story. And I can do that because part of me is an old grandfather, right? So I can say you should do this, but I'm a successful old grandfather, so you should pay attention to me. I have a funny story. I was at a conference in Philadelphia, and I sat beside Martha Stewart. And I think I told you this earlier too. And Martha Stewart worked on The Apprentice, and she had her own show, and Donald Trump was one of the producers. And so I
Oh
said,
yeah, you did.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, what's it like working with Donald Trump? And she looked at me and she said, he's an old rich man with lots of opinions. And she said, I'm an old rich woman with lots of opinions. And I thought, I aspire to be one or other of those things. Whether I like your politics or not is irrelevant. What I want to be is old and rich with lots of opinions. And I'm getting there. So, um, anyway, let's come back just for a second about leadership. What I do want people to understand is that if you have a story, you're a mentor. And if you're a mentor, then you're a leader. And so leaders are not just those naturally bossy people or those charismatic people. They are those people who, in the small moments, are helpful. And I think that is a true sign of somebody who is got the ability to move things forward. If you can reach out and help somebody behind you, you go up in my estimation 1,000%. Really important. And it's funny too because when you look at people talking about jobs and all that stuff, they're always talking about um, job skills and soft skills. And the fact is, the hard skills are can you do the job, of course. The soft skills are you a hassle? So we don't want you to be a hassle. We want you to be helpful. And then, of course, can you follow instructions? That's the old classic. Can you follow instructions? Um, uh, in your LinkedIn profile, make sure your picture has you with a warm smiling, wearing a jacket. A jacket gives you gravitas. I like that. Look at you. You're dressed up. You're wearing a jacket, and so am I. And so I'm treating you with respect. Okay. The warm smile is important because I want to be inviting. Okay. Make sure you can fill out all the components. Of course, there's a background image, there's a portrait image, there's headlines, there is search words, there's an about essay. And in the tech world, you also want to deliver it the way that somebody who's looking at you wants to receive it. So it's going to be point form. It's going to be the languages that you can work in, and it's going to be the technology that you want. But it has to be in a nice shorthand way. We have no attention span whatsoever anymore, so you have to be able to deliver it quickly. In addition to that, I'm a big believer in everybody doing some kind of volunteering, whether it's at your temple or your church or your synagogue or your mosque or in a food bank or a food, some kinds of, any kind of volunteering. I really think that will help you in your future. And a lot of people say, I don't have any money, and why would I work for free for somebody? And so if you're thinking about it working for free, you're wrong. If you are volunteering and if you are giving your time, no matter how little, you are networking and you are also building something very powerful. And I think that is super important. Something else, stop complaining, stop giving your opinions. Okay? Give your opinions on those important issues and save them for the important issues. Don't give them just to be talking. And I, I over and over again, I see people posting online and having comments and saying things that are not helpful. And I want to remind everybody that we want to be helpful. We want to take the time to listen to people and hear their story. And we want to constructively criticize, in other words, help them be better. But we certainly don't want to just give our opinion for our opinion's sake. So I think that is, some of those things are super important. One last thing that I want to throw at you, and I'll wrap this up very quickly. Decide if you're an entrepreneur or an applicant. Okay. And we need both. Both are valuable.
That's
An,
right.
an entrepreneur is going to create their own job and it's going to create the wealth. But the fact is, they need the applicants, they need the candidates who are going to work for them to fulfill all that. And LinkedIn, a lot of these platforms can only do one or the other. You push your agenda. I push my agenda. Okay. We are not looking for jobs. If you are looking for a job, then you absolutely market everything you can in your skills to land a job. But if you are somebody developing an idea, a company, a lifestyle, a brand, or whatever it is, then you're an entrepreneur and that's something different. And you have to decide which one you are. Both are good, both are valuable, but both require a different set of skills and a different set of marketing of yourself.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
quick
go ahead.
question on that,
Yeah, yeah,
Peter?
yeah.
I mean, since we are both on the conversation mode right now, I mean, because there are many who might be listening or watching in the future. People are also pursuing their side hustles. They are also working a job, like you mentioned, the other person, this
Yeah.
with the cement he innovated, and they're also on their side hustle. They want to be able to spread their word, spread right. So how do you balance both? Because I
Okay.
think many
It's an
people are on that board as well.
and it's an art. So I believe that the side hustle, you either create a side hustle that will be permanently a side hustle. It'll always be that other little thing you do, and it's essentially a money making hobby. Okay. But if you have a side hustle that is going to be your ultimate business, then in fact, take the job that you can do your 9 to 5 job, fulfill your role, and do it as well as you can, and then spend all of your energy on the side hustle to make it win. Okay. What happens too, if you were younger, then and don't have a family yet, have very little responsibilities, you have much less to lose. The second you have a family, you have kids, you have a mortgage, you have bills, you have a lot more to lose, and it's harder. Okay. Something else. Think in terms of a team, and no matter who your spouse is or your partner, teams work way better than one person alone. Okay, so if you can create a team, you can really get ahead. When I look at my own staff, those couples that behave as teams, that they look forward in the same direction, are much more successful, not just financially, but also just in their lives, even in their downtime. And I admire that very, very much. And it's kind of interesting too, because I have um, about half my staff is non-binary. And it is really interesting to watch how they navigate relationships in terms of their side hustles and their careers, because there's a lot of obstacles for those individuals. And what has happened over and over again is they have found a way to make a team to be successful. But my short answer is either decide if it is a permanent side hustle or if it is your vocation. If it is your vocation, you've got to find every way to throw energy at it. In our own company, we worked many years getting very little return, and we were really tired. But the ultimate return was a lifestyle that we have now that is absolutely fantastic. We do whatever we want, and that is the perfect life.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, that's it. But beyond that, what I like to do is, talk to people about, their presence online, make it as professional as you can, fill out everything, understand that you can then target people directly, and whether you're doing fundraising for a seed round, or if you're trying to find a job, or if you're just trying to make connections, approach people professionally. When you see somebody post, then comment thoughtfully on that post. If they respond, then fantastic, because when you make the connection, you have a warm connection then. And when you do send a connect request, greet, compliment, ask for advice. Hi, Peter Hawkins, you're terrific. I would like some advice on blah blah blah. And it is really important because everybody likes a compliment. And engaging people is relatively easy, no matter how shy you are. Say you're too shy to go talk to somebody or phone somebody, you can't be too shy to write an email. You can't be too shy to write a note, a connect note. I don't believe that. I believe if you are too shy to do that, you're actually just lazy procrastinator and need a kick in the ass. So, or kick in the neck. Where am I kicking you? I'm going to kick you somewhere. So, at any rate, who is a leader? Everybody can be, because the definition of leader changes everywhere. And but I'd love to hear a little bit from your audience too. I'd like to hear what their thoughts are on this, and I can't wait to hear what Orion has to say as well.
Yeah. Sure. We have at least like 5 or 6 people watching the stream right now.
Yeah, sure.
Let's see.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Because I could fill up the time. Don't worry.
Oh no. I'm just like looking at the.
Well, while you're looking at the questions, one thing that I want to say too, if you're trying to think of an elevator pitch, whether it is for yourself getting a job or your new company that you're trying to push, people say, oh, it's 30 seconds, it's 2 minutes. Well, if you're on an elevator for 2 minutes, you're going to the moon. I can tell you that right now. An elevator pitch for me, the specific kind that I like to get, whether it's you selling yourself or selling your a new idea, is 5 seconds. Okay. My name is, I want to. And that's all there is to it. My name is Peter Hawkins. I'm a mentor for newcomers. I want to help everybody get a job at their pay grade. Okay? It is just short and fast, but let me really understand what it is you do. So if you're a tech person who loves your technology, be sure and find a way, as I said at the very beginning of this, to translate that to the person you're talking to. I always say, pretend you're talking to an 8-year-old from a different culture. So, any questions coming up?
Nothing so far. I can bring in our we have a panel here, so I can bring in Aryan and Aashini, and if they have any questions, please jump in.
Yes.
Actually, Peter.
Yes.
One of the biggest challenges that I constantly come across is when I'm trying to promote my ideas is bias. Yeah. And it seems to be like that's a battle that you never can win. So, how do you handle bias?
So it's funny because it's something that I struggle with for on two levels. First, when I'm presenting myself, and second, when I am listening to others, because I come with my own unconscious bias on a whole level of things. The bias that comes against me is a shock to me. It's ageism. Okay, I see a lot of young people who discount me because of my age, and little do they know that I'm doing stuff that they never dreamed of. Okay. What I think the best way you can deal with bias is a little bit of humor and a little bit of familiarity. The longer you talk to somebody, the more they see the whole you, not just their preconception of you. In my opinion, that's how I would start it. And the same, too, is I've had to learn to listen to whoever's talking to me because people present in many different ways in many different cultures, and I have to have the patience to hear their story so that I can figure out what I can and cannot do for them, or what they can and cannot do for me. But what is your experience, Aryan? What is your experience with bias? When can you give me a specific example?
Um, it's more so in technology. There is loads and loads of bias which is really hard to recognize by the people that are actually having that bias. Yeah, so even pointing things out like that's an assumption there. What do you base that assumption on? So the way I'm usually going is that I'm giving them the ammunition that they were going to use themselves, and then say, okay, so we know all these points. Do you see a way around it? So I'm actually confronting them with their own bias and then ask them to walk around it.
Which is a wonderful way to do it. I mean, and that's a helpful way because it becomes a, a learning experience for both of you. However, I I'm so loud and noisy that I forget to take that minute to come back and, what do you think? What does Bette Midler say? She goes, enough about me. What do you think of me? And, but I think in your case, if you are able to do that and remembering to do that, and I think that's a real, a genuine way around it by merely asking them, how would they solve this problem? How would they work around it? And how has that worked for you?
Yeah. My biggest challenge is actually for myself that a lot of bias is hidden in your culture. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I'm Dutch.
Hmm.
So for me, it's a struggle to be polite. I just want to say what it is. Yeah. And just by doing that, I have already offended people.
Yes.
And
Yep.
yeah, because it looks like I'm taking away choice in the conversation. They don't have space anymore to maneuver. So, what I'm constantly trying to do is imagine, okay, is my style of communicating, is that the problem? Yeah. So even there's already bias. So um, we have to be very careful that we just not staring at each other because there are so many elements about what we can do wrong in a conversation that it's not moving forward anymore. So
Yes.
yeah,
It's funny. First of all, your self awareness is fantastic. The fact that you know this exists, and it's funny because when you said I'm Dutch, I'm straightforward. I always say that Canadians are Germans with a smile, and because we are also straightforward, but we're friendly.
yeah,
And people comment, and as I said earlier, how that we're always polite. Well, we are so polite that we're not helpful. We don't tell people what the problem is. And I try to really navigate that indirect speech carefully to help people. If someone smells bad, I find a way to tell them and to help them through that and give solutions. And because that's holding them back financially, full stop.
yeah,
And so, and I do it by using all the examples in my own office too, because I have many stories to tell. In the bias thing is a really tough thing because you and I are pale, male, and stale. right? And so I think, Aashini, we should be hearing something from you. If I'm curious now, all right, you're a master's student. When you start to talk to someone about your ideas, what's the pushback you get?
I was just thinking of this conversation, but I feel like it definitely depends on who I'm talking to. And I find that usually people coming from career services to our campus handle these situations differently than educators. And most of the time, when I do talk to educators, it's obviously what they signed up for, it's their passion, they want to have their students succeed. But I feel like most of the times when you go to things like career fairs, they're hearing the same thing from about hundreds and hundreds of kids. So it's hard to differentiate what am I actually going to say to stand out from everybody else? Because also coming from a campus, the internship opportunities, career opportunities, they're also very similar. So even if I say, for example, I worked in a lab or X, Y, and Z, I'm not unfortunately that different from the hundreds of other kids that have stood next to me and done that same exact lab. So I feel like that's definitely a pushback that I face trying to stand out. And especially now, I feel like more and more people are doing their masters and getting that higher degree of education versus decades ago, it was not as common to do so. So that's also a challenge I face. And I feel like getting a master's is like the new undergrad degree, if that makes sense. So,
Hmm. Well, it's funny. So when I hear both of those things, because I have to tell you, the candidate in front of me, you, is
mhm,
sophisticated, polished, affirmative. I don't see you looking like anybody else. And so there might be a little bias on your own front, believing that
mhm.
I'm just the same as everybody else,
Yeah.
because you're distinctive and you're interesting and you're thoughtful, and those are wonderful qualities that set you apart from everybody right off the bat. I don't care, because all the people who might also be interesting and thoughtful as well would be in a different way. Aryan, do you have something to share on that?
Yeah, no, I actually fully agree. What I always try to do is uh, bounce the ball back to young people and say, this is not you selling for the job. This is you selling yourself.
Mhm.
So uh, look at yourself and look at where are your strengths. Yeah, you need me to tell me what value you can bring to the organization that I represent. The only person that knows your value is yourself. Yeah. And that means that you need to be confident in talking about your value. And I've discovered that my best way to talk about value was knowing where I didn't deliver value.
Hmm.
So that actually showed me where I did have my value. So if I'm bad at those things, then actually for the rest I'm not too bad. Yeah. So that would be my approach.
Isn't that interesting? Vijay, and can you do me a big favor? I'm going to answer Bala's question in 1 second. But Vijay, can you actually introduce Arian just to make sure that we all have his context and his details? I know he's giving a keynote, but I think people should know who he is and just why he's so valuable here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes. It's. I was. It was just coming. Definitely, Aryan. I just have his intro right here. Uh, yeah, and sorry, Aryan. That's the best picture we got. We tried our best to put that there, and thank you, gentlemen, for doing that. And we have a question from Bala on the YouTube stream. Thank you, Bala, for that question. So let me present that question for everyone to see. So the question is like, hi, Peter, do you have any specific questions for Gen Z for developing their leadership skills?
Well, let me make an observation that's going to offend every Gen Z because,
And Peter, before
oh,
you continue, there was one other comment about the volume.
oh,
Is there a way to increase your volume by any chance? There was
um,
something I
let me
saw on LinkedIn.
let me see if I can. or I can just speak louder. I've never heard anybody tell me that I was too quiet before in my life. No worries. All
Yeah,
right.
just
I just increased it slightly. Let's see if that is better. What do you think? Is that a little better?
yeah, I can hear you okay. I can hear you
Okay.
okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And I'll try to speak into the mic too. So I'm the very tail end of the boomers, and of course we're the rich ones that spoiled the world for everybody else. Okay, and oops, that's my view on that. But then I look at the people who came after, and I always find they're the perpetual babies. They never grow up. And I have talked to lots of 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds who still aren't ready to get married, or still aren't ready to have a relationship, or still aren't ready to commit to something. And what I think that I want to give a couple of pieces of advice. If you're Gen Z, commit to anything, anything at all. Learn it, be good at it, and then share it with others. What I also think is you're probably mid-career now, and this is the time where you should be making advances in money. So if you're not making advances in money, you should be talking to Aryan and me to tell you how. and because those are the years that you make the advances to pay for your retirement, so that you have a wonderful life in your later life. And um, uh, it's funny because I think I talk to a lot of people who say, I just don't know. When I was young, it was called, oh, I have to go find myself. Now it seems to be is I just can't figure out what to do next or what I want to do with my life. And the person's 45 years old. And I'm thinking, unless you're living to be 200 years old, you better get a start. And so I really urge everybody to just take that step, a small step to learn something, okay? And be good at something. And, I'm talking professionally, of course. And if once you do that and that satisfaction, you'd be surprised at how much it would propel you forward. And especially if you can stop looking at your navel and start looking at the future, I think that is something that's really valuable to do. I know that I'm sounding like an old fart on that one. I don't know, Arian, go ahead. What's your view?
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Although uh, I am fighting that image of especially stale in the pale male. And as you know, people are always saying the older you get, the more you go back to with your youth. So I'm actually Gen Z right now, and I want to change the world. Eh,
I love it.
And I do regret looking back and say, oh, why wasn't I louder when I was younger? Yeah. You are always uh, afraid to embarrass yourself. The thing is, you don't embarrass yourself, you're learning. Yeah.
Oh, it's
So,
context. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So, really, for me, it is, um, it's about challenging yourself constantly through your whole life, in every aspect of your life. Keep challenging yourself because flat lines are boring. Yeah, lines that go up, and even if they go down, at least life is interesting. Not always positive, but it's interesting, and you are forced to do things. And if you're passive, then yep, life will spin on. You will have the predictable outcome, but will you be happy? So I actually just had the conversation with my son who is a Gen Z, and he doesn't know what to do. He's got an amazing brain, but he's got no clue what to do with it. The only thing he knows is that he knows everything better than everybody else. Yeah. So I said to him, "Hey, that's a skill. Do something with it." Yeah. Tell
Hmm.
other people, for instance, how to use AI. Yeah. You know, you're always telling people, oh, you need to do this, like this. You're just not capable of executing it. Well, nowadays with AI, it will execute for you. So there's no excuse anymore not to use all those ideas and feed it into AI and get outcomes.
uh, you're speaking to the choir here because I have discovered something. Well, first of all, my mother is going to be 101 on December 31st, and she is still got a smartphone, and she is still sending stuff and posts on Instagram. and doing all this stuff. Now, I'm not interested in anything she posts, but I will tell you she's using everything. And she was on my back because she kept saying, "Oh, you have big dreams and you never do anything." And I'm thinking, I've done lots. But I will tell you, AI has been gold for me. Exactly. It executes all that stuff that we're too lazy to do, too much of, do we are procrastinators or whatever. AI does it for us. And it's remarkable how you can harness that for good. I, to be honest, I love that tip right out of there, and I'd like to share it with everybody. Don't be afraid of it. If you are, you're crazy. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of it. But when it comes to dealing with your son, now, do you have a bias when you talk to your son?
Of course.
Just checking.
Actually, what he is the most afraid of is that I expect him to be like me.
And all
So
you
he
can
has
do is
bias
tell him you
too.
love him. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I think, and again, we're now really sounding like pale men. uh, but I think honesty and open conversations are what's needed. I've had such interesting conversations with a guy actually in Vancouver over the internet. We somehow connected, and he was trying to bridge with his app estranged kids from their parents. And they didn't dare to communicate with them anymore because they were afraid of the feedback that they would get. So he was creating a safe environment where, when the kids were ready, they could start communicating without the fear of backlash. Yeah. So,
Seriously, that just blows my mind.
yeah. So it's about creating a safety zone. It's like the new agile. What's the most important aspect of new agile is having a safe place. And a safe place means that you can talk about what you need to talk about and you won't be attacked for it. And I think that's the major message that Gen Z needs to hear is find those safe places, talk to people to create those safe places.
Wow, amazing, amazing. I love that. Vijay, I'm
Yeah,
curious.
no, I
Are
love I
you?
love that. I was enjoying your conversation at the same
Yeah,
time, back and
yeah.
forth, kind of replying to comments. I enjoyed your conversation, gentlemen. I was going to watch it again when it's after this is all recorded. I enjoyed all of that. But something I felt, I mean, if I could add 1 cent or a half cent, was something I found is like I'm 40 years right now. I'm learning the world, and I'm learning from you gentlemen as well. What I understood really is like you got to be curious and you got to be courageous, Ashwal. I think during COVID, I saw that people were so fearful even to walk in the street for 100 different reasons, right? I don't want to get into that, but at the same time, you have to be courageous. You got to be curious, but at the same time, treat people with respect and kindness. I think that goes a long way. You cannot be disrespectful at all. You have to be respectful. That you have to be respectful to the Gen Z, to the older gentlemen, to the middle-aged gentlemen, to the women, man. I think respect and kindness has to be the way without ever about talking about it, because I don't think enough people talk about it. Right, you got to have the courage and treat people with respect. I think that goes a long way. It seems to I couldn't do it otherwise. That's how I've always done it, right from my schooling to even now, and seem to have worked. So,
It, it's funny, BJ. It's when I was 40, I had a really glamorous job. I'd had it for 10 years, and then I got fired. And
mm,
a big multinational bought my company. I worked for a publisher, and we had some great books that were made into Oscar-winning films, and so things were very glamorous. And then 160 of us were let go, and I'm 40 years old, overpriced in a dying industry. Now, it was killing me, and I was not curious. I was not courageous. I was mad and sulky and irritable. And then when my partner Arno said, "I want to start a shipping company with your money," I said, "Well, I don't want to move boxes. I don't care. I don't want to do anything with it at all." But the fact is that turned around my life. And so, my first 20 years is, you're a kid growing up and then you go to university. The next 20 years is whatever your career might be as you struggle to find your career. And then the next 20 years is something else. Well, my next 20 years was my shipping company that allowed me to have a life I love, full of travel, adventure, and frankly, anything we want to do. When Taylor Swift performs, we flew to Germany to see her. I'm not going to spend $6,000 here when I can go for $10,000 and take 10 people and we all go there. And so it's just now, can I name a Taylor Swift song? No, I can't at all. But still, it was a worldwide thing, so I go. And it is just, I have a life that I never expected um, after I was 40 at a whole new career change. And now you're 40, dynamically creating this new world already, this media conglomerate. But I wonder, like, I can see that you have the whole world ahead of you of what you can do next. And I'm curious. So, Arian, in what you're doing, what what is new that you're doing? What is something that you didn't do 10 years ago?
Um, I'm actually I'm stepping out of my safe zone. My safe zone is technology, and what I am doing is actually saying we're all wrong in how we do things. And what I'm saying is, one of the things that I'm saying is, IT has stolen strategy from the business. We should give it back. Yeah. So, and there's an underlying theme that has always been part of what I've been doing, and
Mm-hmm,
that is simplifying. Yeah. So my strength is seeing patterns and
mm-hmm,
then say, hey, as soon as I see a pattern, I get my lazy side pops up and say, oh, how can I automate that pattern so I don't have to do it anymore? Yeah. So that's what I've been chasing my whole life. And only in the last 5 years, everything came together for me that I was able to say, okay, now I can step outside of that technical world and see how should this function in the business world. And to be honest, the last 5 years, I've just spent time to learn how to talk business because I couldn't. I always fell back into my own language, in my own jargon, and I wasn't able to connect with the business.
yeah, yeah.
So I went deeper and deeper into what am I actually trying to tell and what are the foundations of my thinking. So my theme is all about people shouldn't think in solutions. People should be thinking in outcomes.
Can you tell us more about that? I want to
I
hear more
have
about
a
that.
whole presentation about it, but I'm happy to continue this format because it's actually easy to talk to people. Um, VJ, what do you want?
I'm all game, gentlemen. Whatever format you'd like to do it, that's fine.
Yeah,
This is a format I'm already familiar with. I've done like so podcasts in this format. I'm totally fine with it. But you have spent time putting on the slides. You want to share it? That's totally fine as
yeah.
well.
I mean,
We
I
can all
would,
collaborate and look at the slides and talk also. I mean,
yeah, I'd love to.
I'm all
I,
game.
I'm very curious. I'd like to see it.
All right. Uh, Let me see if I can get that going.
Yeah,
I think while Aryan presents it, I think the growth happens always when you get into the uncomfortable zone. I mean, there is no growth happening when you're comfortable, isn't it? So I love what Aryan spoke about. He's getting into the not safe zone. I think that's where growth happens. So I love that, Aryan.
All right.
wonderful.
Can you see my
Oh,
screen?
yes, we can.
Yes,
Slowly killing
yes.
your business. Oh my God. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So that's quite a statement. And as I already mentioned, I'm Dutch, so I'm going right for the throat and say, okay, this is my thinking, but I know I'm making a lot of assumptions. I'm making assumptions about what you think is solution thinking. and you'll probably start to make assumptions on how can this be killing my business because the solution is the answer. So before we go any further, I want to have a clear definition of solution thinking. So one of the solution thinking definitions that I found is that it's a mindset and approach to focus on identifying and implementing effective solutions rather than dwelling on problems. So this actually scared me because for me, this is saying, oh, okay, let's ignore the problems and be purely focused on solutions. So this was not what I was expecting as being the definition. Another one was even what I call more pink. Let's be positive. Yeah, let's not think about all the doom and gloom. Let's really focus on the solutions and the options that we have in the future. And really, let's work with what we know, because this is about staying in the safe zone. We use what we know. What I was looking for was more like this. That solution thinking is that we identify problems we need to solve or the opportunities that we can realize, and then we suggest what solutions can achieve this. Yeah, so this is really my definition of solution thinking, and I hope that you can find yourself in that. Does that resonate, Peter?
It almost seems backwards to me. Am I, you're saying identify the problems we need to solve by suggesting solutions how to achieve this. It feels a little bit backwards. Can you give me a real life example or an example of a problem you could solve that way?
So think about uh, the competitor has dropped its prices.
Yes, big problem.
Yeah, that's a problem that we need to solve, or potentially an opportunity. So the next step in the process is that people start to provide possible solutions.
Okay, so is it because they're providing solutions because of thinking it's an opportunity, not a problem?
Both. So it could be that they say, we need to do something. What are we going to do to not be behind the competition? So any strategic insight of how we can turn this ship around.
Hmm. Very interesting. I think of the U.S. election and people suddenly saying it presents a whole series of problems, one way or the other, when it comes to my business, with the
Yeah,
potential of new tariffs being added.
yeah,
But the fact is, it is the new world. Full stop. You adapt. You be flexible. You find ways around it. And
okay.
am I thinking things in the right way?
Yeah, so what do you need to adapt?
I need uh, uh, more different ways to bring things in. I need better labeling so that I can be more clear about my compliance to reduce tariffs that way. And
Yeah,
I need other markets.
so you're talking about solutions.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, then this is how your thinking works. Yeah,
yes, yeah.
that's exactly how I look at it. So
Interesting.
my point is that this is the wrong approach.
Interesting.
We've learned all our lives to approach things like this. We have a problem, we have a situation that has changed. How are we going to solve this so that we're back on track again, whatever that is? Yeah. And
Can I take a moment, Aryan,
yeah,
to properly introduce you,
yeah,
so to set the context for everyone watching as well. Also, this will be watched in the future setting as well,
Yeah,
so I want to
sure.
make sure I do the due diligence. So bear with me for a second.
yeah,
I
yeah.
just wanted to introduce you properly, Peter, if you don't mind. So Aryan, I struggle with your last name. Is it like Noordhoek?
Noordhoek.
Noordhoek. Yeah, I was playing with the Google Translate last night from a Dutch name, right?
Yeah, it means north corner.
North corner. Okay, there you go. So this is Aryan Noordhoek joining us from New Zealand, from north of Auckland, from a charming town north of Auckland. What I love about Aryan is like when I first met Aryan, I always see a sense of calm, a cheerful smile, which I've already seen so far. And I loved his keynote at the event where we met at the event modeling and conference event at Vancouver. That Adam Dimitriak and his team put together. So that's where I met Aryan. So it was lovely meeting you there. Something I really enjoyed after the keynote is Aryan helped us set up a beer brewing business in 20 minutes from end to end. Aryan, remember that? Like from beer requested all the way until beer consumed. If someone was setting up a beer brewery business, that can be set up using the event modeling approach. And it was under 20 minutes, we were able to put things together. And and Peter, it has nothing to do with software whatsoever. This concept of event modeling and otherwise, which I will get into, has nothing to do with software or technology or anything. It's about looking at events. What is happening right from beer requested, that is an event, to all the way consuming a beer consumed, right? So that was beautiful. So I love that, Aryan. And I just want to introduce you properly as we do that. Let me play this again. I might want to play. Can you unshare for a moment? I would just want to be able to play this clip so that people get to see also your introduction. And sorry, guys, I just wanted to do it. Do the due diligence minimum possible from my side. So Aryan brings decades of experience across diverse roles. So he's been an enterprise architect. He's a technologist and managing machine language developer, spanning his experience across multinational corporations, across fast-growing startups. At the heart of his work is a passion for unraveling complex challenges, discovering the essence of a problem domain, and crafting elegant, simplified solutions. That's what Aryan is about. He's about simplifying things, right? He has spent about more than 20 years immersed himself into the event modeling and event model-driven design and development. And Aryan now shares his wealth of experience with others, making the world of event-driven architecture more accessible to everyone across the globe. So that's where Aryan is coming from. Aryan, sorry for the interruption. Please go ahead. Right. Welcome to the stage again.
Okay, So actually, the only thing we've done is setting the stage, and that we've got an agreement of the definition that we're talking about. Yeah? So that solution thinking is what we've been taught all our lives, that when there are problems, we start with coming up with solutions. And my statement is that that actually is not the right way to do things. So let's first look at solutioning. Yeah, solutioning is that on one side we have the start of our solution, on the other side is our target where we want to be. And ideally, we go straight to the solution and we make certain that we have a lovely, happy customer. No problems, everything fine. The other side would be that we actually start in the wrong place and we end up nowhere and we won't have a happy customer. Simple. So this problem has existed for forever, and we've come up with all kinds of methodologies to solve this problem, to not end up in the wrong place but have happy customers. So one of them was Agile. And Agile told us that the world would look like this. Would actually, even if we start in the wrong place, we're slowly moving in iterations up towards where we need to be. And yep, we arrive there in one line, in short steps, and we still have a happy customer. one thing has changed. Every step we've had to make changes so that we keep going in the right direction. That's what our learning during the iterations is. What we don't tend to see is that every change often means complexity, because we don't take the time to start over from the beginning, but we take our wrong assumptions with us, and wrong assumptions lead to increasing complexity. The reality of the world is that we go off in the wrong way, then we adjust, then we talk to our customers and we talk them a little bit towards our solution, but it's actually not quite there yet. So we do the next step, we adjust again, and then finally we actually arrive at where we almost need to be, and the customer is, okay, we'll live with it. This is the reality of how solutioning works. And the biggest problem is that there's that gap between where the customer wants to be, or the stakeholders, let's make it a little bit more generic, and where we, the solution provider, start. This is what's causing all kinds of problems, not just the fact that we've got increasing complexity, but there are actually all kinds of side effects besides a customer that says, okay, I'll accept this, but it wasn't what I really wanted. So the core of the problem is that solutions are always based on assumptions. Yeah, we try to imagine what will solve our problem. We've got no surety about it, and the customer also assumes that our solution will solve their problem. So we've got assumptions on both sides and a lot of uncertainty in between. So at least what we can try to do is have common assumptions. That helps a lot already, but it doesn't solve the real problem. Solutions are actually often influenced by bias. It's influenced by what we know and what we have confirmed in the past, so we tend to fall back on that knowledge. Yeah? Or, even worse, it often comes from the person that has the loudest voice in the room. And I know that because I've often been the loudest voice. I hardly ever gave other people the ability to come in and give their opinion about what the solution should be, and read the loudest voice also as the voice with the most power in the room. Yeah, a junior dev will hardly ever win from a senior dev. Even worse, the CTO steps in and gives his opinion of possible solutions, and then we actually spend a whole lot of time either to adjust ourselves to his thinking or have lots and lots of arguments around it. I think this is a really common pattern that we will see, regardless in what industry we're working. So what we have is actually a constant increase in complexity. And it's not simple complexity in the solution, it's also the increase in complexity in the communication with the stakeholders, and an increase in complexity with how we work together in our organization. So more and more aspects are being drawn into the process of solutioning. And the end result of all this is a lot of cost. And often the cost is hidden. So what costs do we talk about? Well, they're the easy ones. Yeah, the budget overruns because it takes too long to get to the actual solution. And because it's taking so long, we lose market share. And due to the increase of complexity, it means that it's much harder and much more expensive to maintain things. But that's just one aspect. A much more important aspect, especially seen from your organization, because money is just money, is the impact on people. People will start to disengage. Why? Because they're not being heard. They're not part of the solution. It wasn't their solution, so they disengage. They don't believe in the solution anymore. They just show up. Or people have become the hero and they do deliver, but that means that the rest of the team says, okay, yep, he's the guy doing it all, and we're not important. And then at a certain point, those people also get ignored and they say, okay, I'm not appreciated anymore, let's leave. The worst can be burnout. Those people that are the solution makers become the center of the solution, and they are a dependency for everything that happens around that solution, and the people burn out. And then lastly, we have the systems itself that become more and more complex, which potentially could also lead in more decrease in performance. So, question to the audience, Peter, Vijay, is this recognizable or am I making this up? Is this indeed a pattern that we see over and over again?
I see a lot of this stuff, and I also, as one of the noisy guys in the room, it's been problematic. Um, I, I I see you're also laying the stage here too. I am curious to see the full interpretation of your theory of how this
Yep.
can work, because I am my bias is what you've just described is what I always do. Although I hate the fact that you dropped the target. That part killed me a little bit. But that's the real McCoy. So what is the next step? BJ, what are your comments?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I love it because like often when projects are run, especially I often see a disconnect, and there is that vision right there that the leaders have, and there are business analysts and teams like that who are trying to help the business, and there are also people in the weeds trying to solve a technical problem or otherwise. And I often see a disconnect that the folks into the weeds often think, oh, the business folks doesn't understand our language, vice versa. So I think I think both from different teams should start speaking the same language. That's the real meaning of the team. The team should be singing in rhythm, right? They should be talking the same language. I think that's the silver lining.
Yeah. Yeah. You're spot on. And to be able to talk the same language and to understand each other, something really important is needed. And I'll talk about that next. Because as you understand, if you can't communicate, you lose control. And what happens in the end is actually, this is typical from IT, the big ball of mud stands for complexity. And what's
Love
happening
it.
here is actually people are fighting each other to give preference to their ball of mud. Yeah? They're not solving the real problem. They're just fighting about how they're going about with solving their problem. Yeah? And this ends up killing your business. Yeah? Because there's no communication anymore. There's distrust. There's no longer that inspiring environment where everybody is on the same page and moving forward, because there's a
These
key element missing.
these graphics are just sad. You made me feel really sad. There better be some
Yeah,
happy
yeah,
shit
yeah,
coming,
yeah.
okay?
Yes, yes. But there's hope. So, and I love to bring hope. So the next thing is actually what's the alternative? And to be able to talk about the alternative, we need to first understand what is a solution actually. And a solution, this is a nice academic sentence, a solution is a system or a system of systems, which tells me nothing. Yeah? But it leads me to saying, okay, apparently I need to know what a system is. Yeah? And a system, again, a little bit academic, but the definition of a system is a group of interacting, interrelated components that form a complex and unified whole. Blah, 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 blah. I still don't understand anything, but perhaps with a picture, it becomes clearer. This is a system. Because we have the rocks working together with the table, we have a book stand. If I remove one of the rocks, and unfortunately AI wasn't smart enough to show me, the system breaks. It's no longer a system. It's no longer a book stand because the books will fall. So the components of table and rocks form a system that have an outcome that I can put the books in there. That's a system. And that definition of a system can actually help us a step further, because a system is not just the sum of its parts. A system is the product of the interactions between the parts. It's how they interact with each other. If I have put the two stones further apart, there's no interaction. And there is no system. Because they're close together, they interact with each other as being a bookstand.
Got it.
So this is how I was diving deeper and deeper into what's the meaning of the words that I'm working with. What is it about solutions that is needed for me to find another approach that doesn't end in everybody sad? What will give them hope? And that, for me, oh, that's the next slide. Sorry, guys. I first dive a little bit deeper in what is an interaction and what is needed for an interaction. An interaction needs two systems, and only two systems. I will go a little bit deeper in that later, but for now it's really important. We have two systems, and a system can be a person, an organization, a bookstand, ecosystem, the nature. They are all systems that have parts that are systems again. And when they interact with each other, they have an outcome. Something has happened when that interaction takes place. So, very important when we look at an interaction is that we understand the rules of that interaction. Yeah, what makes it possible that they have an interaction, and what influences what can happen. And very importantly is who owns the rules? Who is the person that set those rules? Or which system sets those rules? And it's quite surprising what interactions are, because you are now having an interaction. Yeah? System 1 is the picture of the dog. System 2 is you. By looking at the dog, there is an interaction, and it results in something. The funny thing is that this is also a picture of a dog. Same interaction, but with a different outcome. And this is the key word that we're looking for, outcome. What is an outcome? It's not just a bunch of facts. Now, my definition of outcome is something that drives change in conditions, behavior, or attitudes for people. An outcome always needs to be defined from the perspective of people. If you don't do this, then any outcome is without value. So, you've defined outcome. What can we do with this? Outcome is where everything should start, not with the solution, but we start with defining the outcome. And that's a big challenge. A lot of people will not be able to tell you, hey, this project, what is the expected outcome? This strategy, this strategic initiative, what do you expect that the outcome will be? Can you define that outcome? We need to save 40% cost. Well, that's an output. That's something that you've realized. But what's the outcome of the fact that you have 40% less cost? Probably a lot of negative other outcomes, like people having been fired. So try to turn this around. Your example, Peter, of, hey, new government in America, this will have consequences. What do I want the outcome to be? Business as usual. Is that sufficient?
Mm-hmm.
Or
little growth.
yeah. So try to think about the outcome in the form of, okay, what do I want the outcome to be for my people, internal stakeholders and external stakeholders? And then once you've defined this, you will set, okay, how am I going to measure that I'm going towards that outcome? You will set OKRs or KPIs that will be able to measure the progress towards that outcome. And by having that discussion, you will already start to work with what information do I need to receive to get this outcome? And information, I need to have an interaction with a system that gives me that information.
Mm-hmm.
So something must have happened to give me that information. Systems need to talk with each other to provide you with that information. So I start to identify what systems I need to get to my outcome. But those systems in themselves will again need information, and other things need to happen. And by going basically backwards, you are slowly, step by step, building your solution. And it could be that those steps are already in place, but you start to recognize, what do I really need to achieve my outcome? And in every step you can check, do I have all the information that is needed to make this happen? Until you've reached the source of the information and you've got that information flow complete, and you know all the systems, all the interactions that are needed to get there. So that's the core principle of my approach, is saying, I'm not starting with what I don't know and start to guess how I get to the outcome. No, I start with the outcome and I work with what I know. Which is the thing that everybody always tells you when you're in a panic. Stop panicking, look at what you know and start working with that. And that's exactly the principle that I'm consistently applying here. And because of the nature of system thinking that it's not about the parts of the system, it's not about the people in there or about the automation in there. No, the only thing that I need to describe are the outcomes of the interactions between the systems. How they get there is something else. What I'm doing here is I'm describing what needs to happen. And by doing that, I remove all technology or other specific knowledge from the equation, and I create a level playing field where everybody can talk about what needs to happen. Yeah, so that's the key answer, Vijay, to your question. We need a level playing field,
Yeah.
and this is how we can communicate because it's just one language. We're not introducing any specific domain language. We just describe what must happen, and most important, also in what context and what are the outcomes. And that's what I formalized in a tool that actually starts, if I look at it from a business type of organization, but this is applicable on anything. Yeah, this approach can be applied to how we run schools and education. This can be applied to actually helping traumatized people to bring transparency in the organization, in the conversation, without threatening and having specific elements in there that raises the trauma again. What we're doing here is for the businesses is starting with, okay, very high level. I have that outcome. I know my KPIs or OKRs that need to be achieved. Which activities within my organization are being touched, are involved?
Mhm.
And from there, I start to slowly identify step by step backwards what interactions are needed to achieve this.
Mhm.
And in this way, there's no talk about software systems, whatever. This is purely about what needs to happen, what events need to occur so that I know that I've achieved what I need to achieve.
Can
And
I?
if, yeah,
Is it correct to say that because I am focusing on outcomes, I in fact have no problems. I just have circumstances.
sorry, Peter, you're really quiet at the moment.
Oh, sorry. Um, what I'm trying to figure out, or maybe I'm just too far from the mic. Um, eh, since we're focusing on outcomes, are we really saying we have no problems? We merely have differing circumstances.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
And there
interesting.
will still be challenges,
Yeah.
but the challenges will be pushed down to the last level, the how.
Hmm.
And the other benefit of this approach is that because there's no technology in this approach, it's timeless. Because what you're doing in an organization won't change that often. How you're doing it is constantly changing.
Hmm.
So you protect the knowledge that you put in this model, and you can go even a level deeper. When I take order management, I can say, I can actually say, those will be slices of work to get that order requested, to get that order approved. And then you apply exactly the same principle again. Those are outcomes of a slice of work. What do I need to do to get those outcomes? I need to give a command that creates the order. I need to have some sort of an interface that provides that command. And this is more focused on the last step when you're in a software environment.
Hmm.
but the principle is exactly the same when you're talking about human processes. Yeah, you would perhaps name it slightly differently, but the principle is the same, that you look at, I have an outcome, what do I need to do to get that outcome? And the huge benefit of this is that you actually see them as independent slices of work.
Yeah.
So they can be started in parallel. You don't have to wait building one of those slices. You can start working on all those slices at the same time. Yeah, because you know what needs to go in there, the inputs of the information you know, and you
Mm-hmm.
know what outputs you want to have so that the next slice will function.
Mm-hmm.
And the last step, which I can do when we're talking about software, is that we actually take that model and we can give this model to AI. And at the moment, I can just give this model to a certain AI agent and it generates the front end for me. And I've got my code generator, which automatically creates the backend for me. Because all the information required to know what it needs to do is there. And then I leave it to AI, as I said way earlier, to execute.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, we get control back. Yeah, so instead of fighting all the symptoms, we're solving the core problem. We stop thinking in solutions and start working in desired outcomes by having a virtual representation of all the interactions between people and systems. We can see what is needed to deliver value. And by removing the how from the equation, it results in a level playing field for all the stakeholders, and we can design with only the known facts, and we have no longer bias. Because in this whole process, nobody needed to give an opinion. It was constantly talking about, hey, what do we need for the next step? There's no discussion about which next step shall we take. No, it's purely about what is happening. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that also allows you to quickly find those places in your processes where you don't know what the next step is. So then you know that there's a gap in your organization in how to provide information that needs to be there at a certain time in a certain place. So a simple virtual model of what your organization does or must do to deliver value, and that will validate, will have high level of efficiency because you don't do trial and error, you go straight backwards towards all
Mm-hmm.
the systems that you need. The people can re-engage because we're unbiased and we're outcome focused, so they have a common goal and they just share that common goal. And we reduce complexity, and we allow now for evolving architecture instead of being in a constant changing and disrupting organization. We can actually work those slices step by step and slowly migrate the organization in the direction we need it. And we will still have that ball of mud because we created it and it's really hard to get rid of. But slowly we start to bring clarity in the whole thing. And we've got happy faces and hope. Thank you.
Fascinating. I I am curious. I'd be very curious to see an exercise of this process in situ. So where we have the real conversations. I'd be very curious to see it because I got it. I understand what you're getting at. I think it's an interesting perspective, an interesting philosophy, and it is a paradigm switch. Okay,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and um, I want to believe that your results are going to be your results, a bunch of happy people with a little ball of mud. But I want to, I'd be very curious to see it. because everybody has to buy in. Everybody has to say, this is the way we're going to solve it.
Yeah, that's my challenge as usual. If you don't have an organization with a strategic maturity, it's really hard to sell this because people don't want this transparency. They don't want to change the status quo. Yeah, this is for companies that want to control their organization and being able to move their organizations in the direction that they need to go and go fast. The interesting thing is that you recognize that immediately with the very first workshop that I do, where you're talking about let's set up a mission statement for this strategic initiative. What's the outcome? And we start to identify which business capabilities are involved. Immediately, you get resistance because you're showing people what they don't know about their own organization. Yeah, that's the biggest step. And then they need to. I've got one of the big banks in New Zealand as a customer. They were wise enough when I talked with their enterprise architects who say, we don't know stuff. You need to talk with the business. You need to teach the business this.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I wanted.
It's really progressive for even the senior management to acknowledge that. Say, we don't know it. You need to teach it.
Yeah.
Because I always say, I don't know it. I'll pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's amazing how this, as I mentioned, the traumatized kids in the Netherlands, friends of mine are using exactly this modeling technique to actually help children identify what is going on without it being confronting. And they are now actually rolling it out towards all kinds of veterinarian organizations to prevent burnout. Yeah, to create transparency and identify where are the bottlenecks, where are the rule owners too far away from the context in which the rules need to be used. Yeah. All those simple things add so much value. You don't need to use this to build something and get to the outcome. Just the fact that you have a model of the what is something that can be a massive tool in your organization because it's not threatening. Yeah, it's not telling other people what to do. Oh, sorry, how to do things. It tells them what's needed.
What to do. Yeah.
So
and also what I like about this concept, Arjan and Peter, it's like you don't need a massive team. You don't need like 200 people. Like you don't need 200 engineers or 100 engineers. Like if you are competing with big, massive organizations like Amazon's and the big organizations, all you need is a vision, and you can do it handle it with the small and gentle team. Probably like few engineers, like under 10 people or 5 engineers, you can still do it. So yeah, that is something I love about the approach that Arjan is getting to.
No, very interesting philosophy behind it, and it's relatively easy to articulate it too. How do we achieve the outcome? How do we become happy? Not saying how do we stop you being sad. It is let's focus on the outcome.
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's my vision is re-engaging people through simplicity. Yeah, we have so many organizations that build walls of complexity. They think it controls how things are going, but actually it just builds wall around people, and it limits them in their capabilities.
Yeah, and even if and how do you go? Some question, Arjan. I mean, like this can be applied for any business, right? Not just software. You did it beautifully for the beer brewing business or any business. And in Peter, in your case, if there is a logistics that you want to ship an item, so how can we formalize the process from end to end, and you can basically get it out. And if you're, and any business today has software, which is a good and a bad, but I think it's more good for us. I mean, but I think this is a concept that can be pretty much applied for any concept or any business.
Well, there's two things that I see right off the bat is if we're focusing on the outcome and we're focusing on software, AI is going to execute for us whatever we tell it to execute. Okay? And so we're just telling it, we want this outcome. How is it going to happen? Am I right or wrong?
No, that's
right.
exactly it. And as I've stopped coding front ends a couple of weeks back. I just give it my prompt with my model and say, I want either a dialogue form for this model, or I want to have a table representing the data from this output. And it gives me that, and I'm done.
Yeah, nice.
Brilliant. That's beautiful.
Yeah. But coming back to your question about any organization, yes, because you can stop at that first model where you purely have your value streams and your business capabilities, and you're not talking about how you're doing things. So it's not, you don't even have to mention what systems are involved.
Mm-hmm.
You just talk about the outcomes that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that applies to anything. Yeah, you can do it for a festival. I've got a customer who is coming up with a weird concept for outdoor festivals. Can't talk about it, but we're applying it. Within the first 10 minutes, I had 3 enemies in the room because it showed them that they were not thinking about the stuff they should be thinking about.
That happens all the time. I have in one of the companies I'm involved in, I have someone who, to be honest, is in the wrong role and very, very good in a different role. But in the role that that individual is in now, I realize that the Peter principle has happened. You know, he's no longer achieving what I had expected, and even what that individual has expected. So it's very interesting just to see how this plays out because when people find out they've been focusing on the wrong things, there's defense, there's you know, what all those stages of grief, denial, and then eventually, you know, bargaining and then acceptance.
Hence my question about bias.
Yeah, exactly. So Vijayan, what did you learn here?
I already loved the way he explained the beer brewery business, so I'm sold already. So I love the outcome based thinking, and I think that'll take us to the solution more, or rather to the outcome more rather sooner than actually getting distracted in the noise. Right? It's actually staying focused on what you want to achieve at each step of your business. Get it done. Keep moving forward. I think that's a golden bullet here.
Yeah.
Even if you don't use it, you can use it for validating your strategic initiatives without any cost, because on paper you can prove if your solution is going to work.
Yeah.
Because, and the definition of going to work is that we are reaching the outcome, not that we are eliminating the problem.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, because could well be that outcome will create problems.
Oh yeah.
There can be negative. There's never one outcome. Yeah, the original outcome of a strategic initiative will always have side effects that are also outcomes. So what you need to do is build in your KPIs and OKRs that measure all those outcomes, so that you can see that on balance, you've created value.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you get the open discussion on a strategic level. What it should all be about is, how are we paying the price for this outcome?
Okay. Very interesting.
Gentlemen, if can I go ahead with presenting next? If you please bear with me. Definitely. So I'm just going to try and do my presentation. Let's see. Are you able to see my screen? Okay.
We are indeed.
Okay, perfect. So, Arjan, thank you so much. I loved it. Like I said, I'm already sold. I'll definitely be spreading the word. Thank you so much. So today I want to present about why businesses fail. I'm Vijay, and so we do software and we do software engineering. That's our bread and butter. And Pathfinders is a new platform that we spoke about. And today I want to talk about why businesses fail and how early adoption can actually help. And I have some slides here, so let's go through it. So I just brought some slides to talk about basically bring people together and warm the audience a little bit. Let me go through this real quick. And it's often when you're talking to different people, there is always a deep listener pretty much in every crowd. And when you try to explain them what do you do, and especially when you're in a technology or in software, the answer you often get is, so you fix computers, right? So that's the answer you pretty much get, right? So that is, I've seen time and time again. So I thought it was funny. And so they listen really deeply, and it's like, oh, pretty much ask the question, oh, you fix computers. Okay, that's where they come from. And there's one other thing that I found with programmers, like with the nerds or geeks or whatever you call them. And this may not be true for all, but I did observe that some of them do hate nature. And I was wondering why, because they're all the time dealing with some kind of bugs, So this is something I found funny, and I thought I'll bring it here. There's one more. Bear with me. So yeah, I mean, like there's all bugs all the time, and yeah, not the real reason, but so here's another one. So which is something new with AI and things like that. So there is always this big issue that happens all the time in different organizations, and there's always, when there's a second person looking at it, the problem disappears, right? So it's all you need is a second pair of eyes, and today they're calling them co-pilots, right? So all you need is a co-pilot these days. So that's what it is. So I thought these were funny little things to engage the audience initially. So if it brought a laugh, great. If not, I tried. So that's what it is. So let's get started. So with businesses failing, and why are businesses failing? So we want to look at different examples and types of business, right? So we want to talk about MTV today. It's not the music television that we think about, but it's actually MTV, right? So the first M is obviously about movies. So we all love watching movies, and anyone watching the live stream, tell me what your favorite movie is. So because we all enjoy watching movies with the popcorn, isn't it? So let's talk about the movie industry. So here I'm bringing an example of Blockbuster. Blockbuster is a company that I know from the US. It's a very popular video rental place where you go pick your favorite movies, the next Blockbuster, and pay a couple dollars, rent it for a few days, watch it in your DVD player or Blu-ray, and then return it back a few days, right? So they have the best collection. That's what Blockbuster is. And if not, it's in a different name in a different country. But Blockbuster has been there for a long time. They were very successful in their model for a very long time, right? But what happened? There was a sudden decline into Blockbuster. Blockbuster in their peak of peak times in 2004, they had the record revenue of $5.9 billion with 9,000 stores, 84,000 people. But in 2010, they filed for bankruptcy. But if you look at the trend of how Blockbuster did, this is their peak, and they you see a downward trend right after, right? So that is an observation. Keep your thought there. So this is about Blockbuster. Now I want to go to the next, from the MTV, I want to go to the next step, which is, before we go to the next step, multiple reasons why Blockbuster failed, right? So it could be failure to adapt, they missed an opportunity, and maybe they didn't acquire the smaller companies that they should have, like streaming and otherwise. They were late to the market, outdated business model, higher cost of operation, leadership is not as flexible, or there's increased competition that they couldn't compete, right? So multiple reasons. Now let's move on from blockbuster to the next topic, which is toys. So we saw movies, now we're looking at toys. Anyone watching, like, let me know what your favorite toy is or what's your favorite toy your child likes to play. So toys are all something that we all love, and we all engage with toys in on one way or the other as we grew up, right? So looking at toys, so today we want to look at another example, which is Toys R Us. Right, Toys R Us is like a favorite like toys company. You can get in there, buy your favorite toy. They have the widest range of collection of toys everywhere. The latest toy that you want to buy, the Batman, the Spider-Man, everything, right? That you wanted, you always got it. The Legos and the Barbies, everything, you got it. So that was Toys R Us for anyone. So let's look at their trend here. So in 2011, they had record sales of $13.9 billion, had 1,600 stores, at least 800 in the US, 70,000 people employed globally, half of them employed in the US. But in 2018, they filed for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, right? So you see a problem here. So they did well, but they had to shut down their operation. Very similar to Blockbuster, right? So that's that. What are the reasons? Multiple reasons. They might have had like heavy debt burden, potential reason. They were probably late to the e-commerce adoption, which they should have. And there was, of course, increased competition and multiple reasons, right? Cost, consumer habits, financial management, multiple reasons. So that's the T for us. So we saw movies and toys now. Let's look at V for now. So I want to talk about vehicles. So all of these things we interact with them every day, right? So we interact with movies, we interact with toys. So we have known them, seen them, used them, right? So now comes to vehicles. So we've always used a taxi when we got out of an airport, right? Or a bus station or a train station. So we've always done that. So we have taken a taxi from one place to the other, right? So taxis are everywhere. Taxis are everywhere in the globe, right? So the taxi industry, some of the best taxis you have, like you have the greatest like interaction. You ask about the weather, how is the city, to the taxi driver. You remember that conversation? Put in the comments what's your favorite interaction with the taxi driver, right? So if you're still watching, but even if you watch it later, let us know what's your favorite city where you took the taxi, right? So that's taxi for us. We all have a story to tell about taxi, right? But what happened with the taxi? Let's look at the taxi industry and how they did, right? So with taxi industry in 2013, they had a record sales of $3.5 billion, at least in the US. 13,000 licensed taxi medallions. This is for the New York City statistics I've pulled. 13,000 taxi licenses they had. And each taxi license, the medallion as they call it, costs from hundreds of thousands of dollars up to $1 million, right? The story is very similar in Toronto, Chicago, Los Angeles, and others, right? So they had a record sales. They did really well in 2013, $3.4 billion, and you see a decline. So we saw movies, toys, and taxi. You see a similar trend. Why? Why did the taxi fail? Multiple reasons. Again, inability to adapt to new technology, a lot of regulatory framework, higher operational costs. You always paid higher when you were taking a taxi, isn't it? And customer experience wasn't always great. Every taxi driver isn't the same, but at the same time, you wouldn't get the kind of experience that you would thought you would. Sometimes the price were not as competitive. You would think, oh, I'm paying $100 to get to the airport. Why, right? So you have had all those questions and multiple other reasons, economic pressures, competition from other ride-share providers and things like that, right? So that's the MTV for us so far. So we saw MTV, movies, toys, and vehicles, right? So we saw Blockbuster, Toys R Us, and taxi. So what do you see here is basically multiple reasons. And it all comes down to different things like cost, convenience, and impact. But if you go into the reasons, they're it is about staying competitive. It's about enhanced customer experience, increased efficiency, cost savings, market agility, security, future-proofing, sustainability, building brand trust, etc., etc., etc. But if you boil all of that down, it comes to at least three major factors, which is like cost, convenience, and impact. Right? This is what the customer cares about. Right? Cost, convenience, and impact. And how do we give a better cost, more convenient, and how do we make a larger impact? I mean, it obviously can be done through rapid technology adoption, but it is easier said than done, right? So, oh wow, well, we are going to solve all of this problem using technology adoption. At least that seems to be the silver lining. Let's see how, right? I mean, with the challenge here is yes, and we can prove it with numbers. We have solved multiple such problems with rapid technology adoption. Pretty much every line item that we see here in terms of like market agility, better cost, staying competitive, all of this could be addressed with rapid technology adoption. But it's easier said than done. Let's really dig in and see how, right? So let's say we look at technology adoption. Today, we do something, let's say, with 25 steps to achieve something. We want to get to the lowest steps possible, yet achieve the desired outcome, like Arjan was speaking. So we want the outcome, but how can we do it with less cost and easier? Right? So we want to move from 25 steps. So you don't have to move directly from 25 to 2 steps overnight, but you could do it over evolution, right? You could do one step at a time and then like probably reduce it from 25 to 20 steps, then probably to 15, then probably to 10 steps, then 5, and then probably you get to your desired 25 to 2 steps. Or in technical terms, if you want to look at it, it's probably from 25 clicks, you're moving to 2 clicks, right? So how do we get there? It's a slow transition of for any business, right? And software is pretty much it's good and bad. I think it's pretty much there in every industry, in every business. So technology adoption is not a choice anymore. I keep saying that. I've tweeted about it a long time ago. Technology adoption is not a choice anymore, but a necessity, right? So we all know human evolution. We went through evolution, and we are here right now, right? So similarly, we wanted to conduct a study how a business can evolve. Let me give you one example, then actually let us get into how business also can evolve like the human does, right? So let's take an example of an AI study. Let's say, is everyone doing okay? Any questions so far? I'll just take a pause here before I move on. Any questions? All good? Okay, so let me dive in to our first example, which is about, and this is an AI study where we want to solve the real-time customer support using emotional intelligence, right? So the story here is basically, we know the customer support is not great all the time, right? Sometimes it's very rare to get a great customer representative on the phone or on a chat who is super responsive, speaks the kind of tone, speaks the kind of language that you want to, and shows the empathy that you would expect, right? So it is always not the same. But if you were to apply AI to such a scenario where the AI could analyze the customer sentiment in real time, so what AI would do is basically analyze your voice, your chat, and video, and basically deliver the response in a soothing tone that you expect, in a language that you prefer to be responded, and the response that you would like to see. That is something the customer is expecting but not getting it today. So this is an example of how we could apply AI for a customer support scenario and then basically deliver better value back to the customer, right? So this is one such example. So similarly, each and every other business go through different evolution, and let's talk about it. And change is always difficult, right? But at the same time, like Einstein said, if insanity is about doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. But if businesses are not willing to change, but expecting different results, that's not going to happen, right? So the two things that are needed is change and action. It needs to be done. And Einstein, I haven't seen him. He's long gone. But at the same time, what are the leaders from the recent times talking about? So here is like Andy Grove, the former CEO of Intel. And he said only the paranoid survive, which is very true, because unless you're paranoid about your business, and it's very difficult to survive also. So two things that are necessary is to be embracing change and taking swift action, right? So let's see how we can do that. Let's bring technology in business. I think many businesses are already understanding that, and they've brought technology in business to a certain extent. So today, if you take it any given business, you would pretty much have probably a few spreadsheets, a Word document, probably a CRM software. Probably they have an app or a website or otherwise, and they might have an ERP system and maybe a few others that have not made it to the list here. But they're all disconnected, right? They're not all speaking the same language, except they may all share the same logo, but they're not speaking the same language, and they're not really helping each other in being a disconnected system. So how can we bring these different disconnected systems to a future state, right, which is slightly more optimized? The first step one, is to probably rethink how we can aggregate these systems and the data that comes from all these different systems. That is data in the spreadsheet, that is data in the CRM, there's data in the app that we're using, also in the ERP, right? So how can we bring these different data sets, and each box here represents a database if anyone is watching. So each box assumed to be a data set or a database that you already have, and APIs are basically ways to interact with these systems over internet, over HTTP protocol. So nothing to get intimidated here, but these are all ways to get to the database, APIs, and there are probably some old SQL batch scripts that the systems are still running, right? So this is all the underlying back office experience that you probably have today, right? So first step is to probably aggregate data and function by various departments, right? That is step one from evolution point of view. Moving to step two, once you have done that, next step is to aggregate all of these business data into something that is easily accessible, right? So if you want to do AI, right? So many businesses come and ask this question, hey, I want to do AI today, right? So AI can't be done unless this is not an absolute answer, but the finer details is the devil is always in the details. AI can't be done unless you have data underneath it, right? So you need to have data. So this is the first step, is to collect and aggregate all the business data before you can apply AI to it. So that's a step three. How can we facilitate AI? So to facilitate AI, you need to have an aggregated business data that would facilitate machine learning. You could put all these systems together where you're learning from data, you're learning and identifying from different patterns, right? So that is step three here. So once it's an evolution, right? It all takes time. It's not an overnight thing. It takes time to get from step one to step two to step three. But at the same time, that's how like human evolve. You need to evolve as well. But it's not going to take centuries old, but it can take like months and weeks old. And probably in less than a couple of years, you'll definitely be able to get from point A to point B through these steps that I'm walking you through today. So now we're in step three. We are learning from data and identifying patterns and facilitating machine learning, right? Let's go to next step. Step four. Next step is basically enabling decision intelligence, right? So this is the future state where we want to be. And before we get to step five, right? So this is the state where you're basically making sense out of data. So we are enabling data that is helping us make decisions, right? So once we are in that state, the step five is the golden state. Is probably a 10x or 20x state where you have like beautiful dashboards. Today we have dashboards, but it doesn't have the kind of insight that you would have to make intelligent decision making, right? So and in this step, you should be able to automate recommendations, right? So you should be able to predict the future and be able to prescribe what the next 6 months is going to be like without lifting a finger. That's the dream, but at least like it takes effort to get there. And you should be able to also do a different what if scenarios. What if we run this marketing tool, or what if we buy that software? What if we employ another 20 people? If you're able to run those different scenarios, and we can try and see how that makes a difference in the business model, and how we can make decisions on the go using machine learning based data backed systems, right? So this is a step one to step five, moving from current state to a future state where we are evolving from human intelligence to decision intelligence, right? So that is the golden stage that we want to get to, where instead of like we creating the strategy and like working through the system, we are basically applying the strategy. So it's very different state that we are talking about in the existing state where we are talking about human intelligence. So here you are pretty much part of the system, right? So you have to interact with the spreadsheet, you have to write that Word document, you have to interact with the CRM software, pretty much everything you are involved. But in the golden state where we are in the decision intelligence state, the humans are able to apply the strategy instead of like and use these tools for an advantage. I think many businesses understand that they've evolved from like they are probably in step 1 or probably in step 2. But I think once you get to a decision intelligence state, there are multiple such benefits, and this is this is a golden state that like many business aspires to be, but they're not there yet. I'll take a pause here and ask if there are any questions.
What I think is interesting is that both Aryan and Vijayan are doing a total shift of, instead of having the human be the decision maker, they are a component of the process. And then in Aryan, of course, you are now totally focused on outcome and not on the origin. And I am old-fashioned and saying, be nice to each other.
Love that.
All right. Yeah, but no, it's just I was just thinking of how you folks were taking bias and maybe emotion out of the decision making, and I am trying to stick it back in, but in a modified way. And very interesting. It's interesting to see these ideas. This is not my normal circle.
No, it's all good. I think this is a concept that can be applied for any business, because pretty much every business uses software one way or the other. If you're using a spreadsheet or a Word document, you're already there. But I'm trying to get you. I'm trying to move the rock, right, one step at a time. And move the business in a direction where you can sit back in the beach at the same time, make those decisions from the palm of your hand, right? So that's the golden state that we all aspire to be, but we're not there yet. So
I make those decisions in Miami on the beach. Just saying.
There you go. You're already in the golden state. Very good. Good for you. Any questions from you, Aryan? I'd like to move forward. Like if unless I'll keep going.
No, not real questions. Some remarks, but I'll save that for after.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I'll continue with the presentation. So imagine the state where you're basically transforming business from current state to a future state, and this is the business evolution that we are talking about. Now let's bring back the story that we got started off with, right? And there are also multiple other recommendations for different business. These are not the like be all end all, the top 5 steps or top 4 steps, but at the same time there are other recommendations like try and automate repetitive tasks as much as you can, like implement machine learning if you could, and of course aggregate this data and aggregate systems as much as possible. And if there is an opportunity to reach a wider audience, to reach a wider customer of your business, like try and see how cloud adoption can help, whether it's a private cloud or a public cloud, right? So it can be done. And always like pay attention to like the cybersecurity practices that can really enhance the safety and security of your data and your business. And try and see how we can visualize the data better. And if you can also like weave everything around a data-driven culture, these are different data points, wherever you store them, whether you store it in your premise or elsewhere, the data safety is important, but at the same time, ignoring data is actually ignorance, right? So it cannot ignore business data because all of these data points coming from the business are vital to you. So try and see if you can weave in a data-driven culture. So that's what would be the top recommendations coming from me. And let's move back to the story. where we started talking about Blockbuster, Toys R Us, and the taxi industry, right? So the MTVs. So today, these MTVs are basically transitioned due to missed opportunity for multiple other reasons. So they are transitioned from Blockbuster to Netflix, right? And similarly, Toys R Us to Amazon. We'll get into one example at a time, one thing at a time. So let's look at Blockbuster to Netflix. What happened because of this missed opportunity? Netflix today, the last year reported revenues like estimated $33 billion in revenue, right? So that's a golden missed opportunity for Blockbuster. Blockbuster had an opportunity to acquire Netflix at one point for $50 million, but they missed the opportunity, cost them their business, and they filed for bankruptcy. Today, Netflix making $33 billion in revenue, right? Similarly, Toys R Us and Amazon. And let's look at the numbers here. So what Amazon is doing today globally in the toys business is they are selling toys alone for $133 billion globally. And just in the US, they're selling just under $5 billion. Similarly, other competitors like Mattel and Hasbro and Spin Master, they're doing numbers like $2 to $5 billion ranges, right? So what Toys R Us missed is basically an opportunity. It's a missed opportunity again to list their toys. They listed all of their toys in Amazon instead of creating their own platform. This was in early days of 99, 2000, I believe, or something around that time frame where they missed an opportunity to innovate and adopt technology at the right time. Now, Amazon is reaping the rewards, right? So let's look at the taxi industry, for instance. So taxi industry, similar story. It's a missed opportunity for the entire taxi industry. A lot of red tape, regulation, and things like that. But Uber innovated and see, okay, how can we innovate? And today, Uber is a whopping $22 billion industry between US and Canada. So it's a report coming from 2023, right? So a lot of missed opportunities here, and technology adoption has basically helped a lot here and helped these different companies innovate from in every other industry, right? So we all recognize the movies, toys, and vehicles. What has changed are the brands around it. So the concept will still remain even like 50 years, 100 years from now. But unless you're not innovating, you will end up costing your business, right? So that's the message. So moving on, there are also other examples. Like there's still, I think there's a lot of rooms to be played here between the traditional education versus online education. Even look at this call, right? Here, this is an online conference, a global digital conference. We're connecting people from New Zealand to Toronto to Edmonton. So it's beautiful. So we're already halfway there. So similar thing with universities as well, right? I mean, sometime during COVID, someone was complaining about charging $40,000 for a semester. They pretty much attended online, right? So what are they paying for really? So that's a question that people need to ask. So similar question is for traditional banking versus mobile banking. I think mobile banking is great, but at the same time, the speed at which they're adopting versus blockchain and others, I think it's really slow. So unless they are innovating, they will disappear in a different way. Similarly, with hospitals and telehealth, if you're really curious about the banking industry, go watch the Bitcoin episode with Adam O'Brien. I think it was a beautiful episode. It's a lovely episode to watch. Similarly, with hospitals, telehealth is kicking off in a big way. And I think for basic needs and general requests, all you need is to go get that antibiotic. You need penicillin. You're basically sitting in the emergency waiting room for 5 hours. Doesn't make any sense, right? So you got to be able to innovate there and then get people to the outcome that Arjan is talking about. Similarly, with the streaming services and TV, I don't know if people watch TV anymore. I stopped watching TV. It's been more than like 5-6 years. I don't seem to watch TV at all. And pretty much the streaming services have kicked in. I don't know about others, but like that's what I do at least. Similarly with restaurant, I do enjoy going to the restaurants, but I think it's going to take a while to get here. But I see a lot of pop-up ghost kitchens that they're only online, right? These are online cloud kitchens, as you call it, or ghost kitchens. There is no physical store presence. Similarly, with Office, there's a lot of co-working spaces evolving, and remote work really kicked off. I still love going to a building and meeting people in person, but there's a new way of working as well that people seems to embrace, right? So those are different examples. So in this whole race, right, where different businesses collide, who do you think is going to win? Let's take a deep dive into this picture right here, right? So here we have 2 horses with the horse wagon on it, and on the other side you have a Formula One car, right? On the Formula One car, you pretty much have like a 1.6 liter turbocharged V6 engine, 1,000 horsepower or higher, top speed of 300 a watt. And on the other side, you have a horse wagon, probably with 1 or 2 horsepower, top speed of like probably 20 kilometers per hour. Who do you think is going to win the race? Who will win? I think that's a real question, right? So is it going to be the horse wagon or is it going to be the Formula One car? So with that, I'll stop talking. That is me, VJ. So here are my details. Please feel free to talk to me. Thank you so much.
I just want to make 100% that we all understand what the race is.
Yes. What are we racing for?
And what are we racing for? Yeah. No, fascinating. Fascinating to see. Aryan, let's hear your comments, sir.
Yeah, now, to me, it all comes back to maneuverability. I think what businesses lack are the capability to change when they need to change. So what you're actually talking about is building your company for change.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why you need to adapt those tools, because you need to change faster and faster. And that I can link back to my talk again, in sense of the what you need to do doesn't change, but the how you're doing it is changing. So make certain that you set up your business that you can apply the how in different ways as soon as you need to.
Right. Right. The how of things definitely is a question, and my personal experience, Aryan and Peter, working with big corporations, change is really difficult. Bringing about change is really difficult, and especially if a new idea or a concept, and if you want to change, you have to get the buy-in for like not 1%, 2%. My supervisor would agree, but not his supervisor, right? I mean, it's and it goes back to funding, etc., etc., etc. But but change is inevitable, right? I think the only thing that is permanent is probably the change. And if they're not changing and not taking action and not being paranoid about, because at one point, Blockbuster was cocky enough not say, no, we are good. We're not going to acquire for that like small streaming service for whatever few $1,000,000. No, we are good. They had the widest collection of stores and everything, but they lost their business. Similar thing happened with the other industries as well. So I just brought some examples that would basically allow people to think, because if you're not bringing that change at the right time, it'll end up costing your business itself. I think that's the message.
Very interesting.
Should we be switching, VJ, to the Google Meet? Or
yeah, I'm done. My presentation is good. Let me have. I think Aashini will be back. Is Aashini back? Hold on. She was going to be here. Can you bear with me for 10 seconds, please?
Yes, you can.
it's funny how different people with the same motivations have somehow crossed paths here.
It really is. This is like I'm. So how did VJ discover you?
I was at a week of workshops in Vancouver, and he went to the conference on Saturday with from Adam Dimitrik.
Yes.
Yeah. So and I was actually inspired 3-4 years ago by Adam's work. So Adam introduced me to event modeling, and that was for me when it all clicked and said, okay, now I've got a modeling technique that can actually show you what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, funny how that all.
I always tell everybody, go to everything, talk to everyone.
Yep.
Yeah, Aashini was just going to come join, and she'll do the closure for us. Then we can jump on to the Google Meet right after.
Okay. We were just saying that it's quite interesting how we all got connected, and that we actually share so much of the thinking and what we find important, and the mentorship. And I think your definition and your goal with Pathfinders is great, because it is a constant fight to find the path forward, and having people walking with you is much easier than if you see them going past you on different paths.
Pretty much, we'll talk in the Google Meet. I'll let Aashini do the closing.
Okay, you can see me now, right?
Yes.
Sorry, it kept saying I was backstage for some reason, but then it didn't let me talk. But okay. Okay, am I all set to start the closing? You guys can all
Sure.
right?
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you all for joining us for the keynotes. Up next, we have an exciting opportunity for you to engage directly with our speakers in a breakout session. Join us on Google Meet, found below on this chat, where you can dive deeper into discussions and ask any questions that you may have. The link will be shared in the chat. Don't miss this chance to connect. We appreciate your participation in the Pathfinders Global Digital Conference today. Your presence inspires us as we explore leadership, technology, and ways to make meaningful impact. Remember, each of you is a Pathfinder, capable of great change. A heartfelt thank you to our keynote speakers, panelists, and everyone who contributed to this event's success today. Whether you're here live or catching up later, we're grateful for your involvement. Be sure to join the breakout sessions before you go. Keep exploring, stay inspired, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Aashini. Thank you so much, Arjan, Peter. Let's jump in onto the Google Meet. Let's continue the talk there. Aashini, you want to join there? We can join there. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining.
Bye-bye.
Your stream might still be uploading. Before you.
So don't close
does it say uploaded? Yeah, it will quickly upload, but I'm just like reminding you that your stream might still be uploading.
It's 99%, so I'll leave it open. Okay.
It'll upload by itself. You can just leave the tab open. Yeah.